Hey there, everybody! Welcome back to the Only Podcast. It has been a while. My name is Chris Vanini, your host, as always. But we have a different group of the Only folks here. Joe has been busy moving and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. He is unable to join us, but I am joined by TOC Managing Editor Dom Garrett. I think that's how you pronounce your name, as well as our hockey contributor Jeremy Doer, right? Just Doer.
Yep.
How are you guys doing, Dom? I guess since it's your first podcast, I know you've been running the site for a while, but I guess say hello to all the millions of listeners.
Yeah. Hello there, millions of listeners. My name is Dom Garrett. I've been managing the site for going on about 2 months now or so. It's been a lot of fun. Really saw everything right after the untimely exit from the March Madness tournament, and gearing up, ready to talk some Spartans here. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, now Jeremy, you just got a new job and you're getting married or got married, right?
Yeah, got married June 11th, so just over 10 days now. Yeah, thank you. Yep, and I actually started working early June at MSU now, so been kind of a pretty hectic June, pretty busy, so July's going to look really boring compared to what I've had to deal with the last couple weeks. But
I've been part of the reason we haven't had one of these in like almost 2 months, as you can tell by the fact that Joe's not here, is that it has been a very surprisingly busy summer, even though there's not much. For one, there's not much MSU stuff going on, so we haven't had a ton of reason to put a podcast together. We maybe saved some topics for a bigger single podcast. We were going to do one last week, and then I got involved in a dog rescue up here. Some house had 100 dogs in it, and we tried to get out a bunch of dogs and work with a rescue and hold some of them at our house while we get new adopters, move them all around. Whole big mess. So I was super busy last week, so we couldn't get it in last week. I was hoping to get one in before the NBA Finals ended, but they didn't. But maybe that was better because now we got more to talk about at the end of it. But so we got a few things we'll talk about here. We got NBA Finals, obviously, just wrapped up. Draymond Green and all that. NBA Draft is on Thursday night. We're recording this Wednesday night. We won't go too in-depth on that because it may be old news by the time you listen to this. Also, the vote or the decision to put lights in at Spartan Stadium, and as well as the biggest reason that we've got Jeremy here is Ron Mason died last week, the former longtime MSU hockey coach, former MSU athletic director, left a heck of an impact on Michigan State as a whole. I guess as we kind of start off here, Jeremy, what were your when you look back at Ron Mason's legacy, what stands out to you? What he did at MSU?
I think the biggest thing, especially looking at the state of the hockey program since he's left, is just the amount of consistency that he brought to the program. You look back and maybe with over 900 wins, second most winningest coach in NCAA history now that he's been passed. He retired as number one, but he's been passed since then. You might think that with only one national championship that was kind of a little at least one at MSU that was a little underwhelming. But in all actuality, just seeing how MSU has struggled to get a consistently, NCAA berth team since he's been gone, when you look back at that and just look at the run of, consistently being at the top of the CCHA, consistently making the NCAAs, and really not even making it a question every year. You knew you were going to be in the NCAAs every year. It's just, did you make it through to the Frozen Four? So that would probably be the number one thing looking back on him as a coach. But it's a much bigger thing than that, just looking back at what he did as an athletic director, what he did for college hockey as a whole, being a real steward of the CCHA when it was started.
He basically created it.
Yeah,
he basically helped create it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And, on top of that, Lake Superior State, a lot of people find it weird, especially if they're not a big hockey historian, but Lake Superior State was one of the most dominant teams of the 80s. And he took that program from an NAIA program to making it a varsity, and then he handed it off to Rick Comley, or Coach Rick Conley was a part of that program as well before Rick went over to Northern, and that's kind of how they had their relationship start. So just everything that he's done for USA Hockey and the growth of the college game was a lot because of him and what he did and made it so that really good players can choose the NCAA route. And now it's, we're up to almost 30% of the NHL has an NCAA tie, which when Ron started back in the 70s, you probably couldn't have told anybody that was going to get that high. So he's going to have a pretty lasting impact outside of just MSU, but it's as far as MSU, it's just that consistency that he brought.
Yeah, he about the CCHA. I mean, they named the trophy after him, the Mason Cup, while he was still coaching, and you don't see that very often.
He won the first Mason Cup.
Right. It's like if they just renamed the NCAA football trophy the Nick Saban trophy. You'd be like, wait, no, weird. Like that's how big of a deal he was. And 19 tournament appearances from '79 to the early 2000s. 7 Frozen Fours, but only the one title. Kind of Tom Izzo-ish in that sense, with able to get the Frozen Four, but maybe not as many titles. And I had actually, I don't know if I said it on a podcast or if I had said it to Joe or something, but I had in my mind imagined Mason coming back and replacing Anasta's Bill Snyder style to like take over the program again and try to put it back. Because he still had some miles in him when he stepped down to be the AD, but I think his work as the athletic director is also a big part of that. And he didn't hire. I mean, he was the AD when Mark D'Antonio was hired, although Hollis kind of did a lot of that low work. Mason did hire John L. Smith. That didn't work out, but he brought a lot of stability to it in the athletic department that had been a mess for quite a while. And when you look at, Izzo and D'Antonio right now say all the time, we've got the administration and athletics on the same page. Everybody's moving in the same direction. That I think that goes back to Mason kind of getting everything in order there and setting it up for Mark Hollis to take it to another step. And I think when you look at, after he died last week, I had thrown out maybe who would be on the Mount Rushmore of MSU athletics. Not necessarily, I mean, it could be players, but just people who affected that department the most. I came up with Ron Mason, Tom Izzo, Biggie Munn, and John Hanna, who took the university to a whole nother level through athletics. Dom, what do you think about that? Who would you put on maybe a similar type of deal? I know you're out in Seattle, but what are your thoughts on Mason and the whole situation too?
Well, I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, you guys really touched on a lot of the things that he did for the university. That he did for collegiate hockey in general. Jeremy, you had great points there. I think that it's really awesome that just looking at obviously all of the words that came out of after he passed and what he was actually able to do. You're talking about that tie to the NHL. I mean, he coached 50 former Spartans that ended up going on and playing in the NHL, which is just amazing as we're talking about the NBA draft and what Izzo was able to do or what he's been able to do. It's just absolutely amazing what Mason was able to do, and I feel exactly what you were saying, Chris. The what he was able to do as athletic director, it's really awesome. He was only there for 5 years, but MSU teams, there was 11 conference championships. MSU was represented in the NCAA championship 76 times, including the Frozen Four, including women's basketball, men's basketball, ice hockey, field hockey, different things like that. It was just, it was pretty amazing. And like you were saying, Chris, not wanting to be repetitive, but I think that your four, when you're actually talking about the Rushmore there, it's hard to imagine a Michigan State Mount Rushmore without his face on it. I mean, he had such a lasting impact on his sport. It's hard to imagine him not being on there. So I'd have to definitely agree with that.
Jeremy, would you change any of that?
No, I think that those four are pretty good starting right now. I mean, I think you would have to put the maybe the asterisk that eventually, let's see what at the end of D'Antonio's career, does he have a spot there with swapping someone out? Maybe Biggie for D'Antonio if you were to do anyone out of those. But yeah, I definitely think Ron's earned his place between the athletic director and coaching, especially when you just think about it's definitely hard for maybe a lot of our listeners who are younger, right around our generation and younger, to kind of imagine the fact that there was a time when MSU hockey was the only thing going right out of the three big sports. I mean, you had you had Judd Heathcote kind of handing it over to Izzo, and it took him a few years to get it going. And then you had a football program that really wasn't kind of just pretty mediocre under Perlis, and then Saban and kind of what it went through. So it's hard to imagine now with Munn struggling to sell out and kind of have the same atmosphere. But there was times when that was the hardest ticket to get out of the three sports. You had to give away your football tickets, but you had to do some bribery to get some hockey tickets. So I think he definitely has earned his place there for everything that he did for MSU. And really looking at the AD thing too, the foresight to kind of groom Hollis in a way. I don't know if it was all Ron's idea, but kind of letting him be a huge part of that D'Antonio hire, I think, was an excellent decision that obviously worked out as far as D'Antonio's hire, but it also worked out in giving Hollis some great experience. So
yeah, you talk about the hockey being the big ticket. It was, I don't remember what that streak was, but they had that sellout streak from it went into the early 2000s. It ended under Comley, but it dated back to at least the 90s. I think pretty early in the 90s. I don't remember. It was I mean it was you look back at where hockey is now, and outside of that blip national title in 07, it's been a decade plus of not so great hockey. But yeah, I mean that MSU hockey. I mean there was a time. I remember reading a story. I think Red Berenson was basically giving away hockey tickets because MSU fans would take over Yost. now it's kind of the reverse, and he did a heck of a job there. What were you gonna say, Dom?
Oh yeah, I mean it's that idea of like what Jeremy was saying for the younger, and I know we talked about this a little bit before, but you think about what Izzo does now, and like the national claim that he has, even though he doesn't have a slew Krzyzewski or Calipari type national championships behind him. Between I was just looking this up, between 1982 and 1990, there was only 2 years within there that MSU didn't win the CCHA playoff. Like, you're talking about just dominance of an entire decade, of a college sport. It's, you look at what Izzo has been able to do over the course of his 21 years that he's been there. That's exactly what Mason did, and really catapulted the program to to national acclaim for a long time.
Yeah, and speaking of hockey, I know Tom Anastas' contract was rolled over recently at the last meeting, which I guess isn't really a surprise with how their contracts work, but Joe and I have talked plenty about our thoughts on where the program is with him right now, and we don't need to get into that. But also notably from that meeting, transitioning now into football, is that there are going to be lights at Spartan Stadium.
Yes.
Finally.
Not for I didn't get all the details, but I don't. Is it going to be this year? I'm looking it up right now. Is it going to be?
It's for the
2017 season. Yeah, I mean they'll put it's where they are now. You put them on top of the press box, and then the two corner end zones on the other side. And I mean, the first reaction is, oh, this was a long time coming. I think MSU and Purdue were the only ones left. It'll cost about $2.5 million. Ready for 2017. And okay, so your first reaction is, okay, it's about time they got lighting. Everybody has lighting, more night games, blah 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 blah. But, and I've said this before in other forums, is that I don't think they really needed it, because for one, when the lights come in, the TV pays for that. The TV pays to bring the lights in to do all that stuff. So it's not MSU's cost to do that. And MSU has had plenty of its share of night games. If it's a big game, and MSU's good and it's at Spartan Stadium, there's a good chance it'll be 3:30 or a night game, like Ohio State was a couple years ago. Although I know Hollis doesn't really want those to be night games at Ohio State or MSU. But so if you're good, you'll get a night game, and TV will bring their own lights, so you don't need to pay for it. And on the other side, Spartan Stadium doesn't have many other uses because it's a grass field. Like when Michigan added lights to their stadium, they do concerts there, they do soccer games, they do hockey games. You can do all sorts of stuff because they got a turf field. You put it over whatever. You can't do that at Spartan Stadium. When they did the U2 concert there a few years ago, U2 had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace the entire grass field. You can't do anything on that field. It's only used for football, basically. So the idea of spending this money, I don't really see. I don't really see the point. Luana K. Simon said it's not about night games. It's about having lights. And I know you have those giant kind of trailers there, but I don't really see the point. Dom, what do you think about adding lights?
I think that it's, if for anything else, it's about time. Like I was, like people are kind of surprised that we didn't have't already. I think that it's, basically, as far as the money goes, like it's going to cost between, around $2.5 million. With the new TV deals, I see the fact that Michigan State might be wanting to get more night games. If the money is going to be right, the fact that these new deals actually come rolling in, it's not like the university or the athletic department or whatever is going to be hurting for money. With what Fox and ESPN just paid, it's like tripling the revenue for the conference, which is just insane. So if you could do something like this, maybe get one or two, maybe get an extra night game. I think that it could be just Michigan State saying, you know what, we're going to be good enough that we're going to deserve the night games. You're not going to put us at 12:30 on BTN. We're going to be having those games on FS1 or ESPN. Your college game day marquees coming up in the future. So I think it's a good investment. If there's a way that they could figure out to have more events there, awesome. But I'm overall all right with it. I don't think it make or breaks anything, but it's going to be nice to have our own lights.
Well, one thing I did see mentioned is that the lighting as it is not. The lighting they use is not that great. If you watch a night game at MSU, it's a lot darker than maybe a night game at Michigan or other places like that, and it will light up more on the outside the stadium, the walkways. It'll be brighter there, which is good. So those are some of the other benefits for it. Jeremy, what do you think about the lights?
Yeah, you kind of ended up hitting what I was going to say there with the improvement of the actual quality of the lights. Because I know usually you have the trailers that are kind of just in the four corners of a Spartan Stadium. But I think, doing the permanent ones, they might be able to put some lights on top of the press box and suite area, which could hopefully give it the stadium a better whole look. Because it's even not just bad as far as attending the game. It doesn't look that bright, but it's also pretty rough on TV when you watch the night games. It's almost like when you watch like a game at Staples Center and the crowd is pitch black because it's just lit up, and then you compare it to nice, you go to, and that's like watching like an Alabama-Auburn game when those on CBS late at night and it's completely lit up, and then you look at MSU and you almost want to check your TV like brightness. Am I off here? So I think that's kind of nice, and for nothing else, it's just nice to not be lumped in with something with Purdue anymore. So I guess that alone might be worth the investment, I guess. But I think functionally, will it help recruiting? Probably not. Will it get us maybe one more 3:30 or late season 3:30 game to night game, it might. But I just think with the way, like Dom said, with the way the TV money is rolling and everything like that, it's a pretty small drop to maybe aesthetically have the stadium look a little better. So
spend that money.
Yeah. Well, this is the part where you go, well, just throw $2.5 million to lights and be sure. It sure wouldn't be too hard to throw that money toward the student athletes, but that's
that's true.
Overall, I don't really see if they're overflowing with money. I guess good for them. I mean, you could throw that money toward other sports because a lot of MSU's Olympic sports do not have the best of facilities. But I'm assuming they think it's worth the benefit. Since there's nothing but football on that field, because it's real grass and it's because it's one of the best grass fields in all of football. And I had someone at Notre Dame tell me one time that Notre Dame's always wanted to get their grass field to be as good as MSU's, and they could never get it. Now they're turf, and so that doesn't matter anymore. But as one of the shrinking number of schools that actually uses grass, that limits what they can do. So, I mean, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they think there's a reason to it, but I didn't think it was. I don't think it was really worth it. Anything else you guys wanted to touch on that?
Well, I mean, Chris, do you think with the lights coming in, do you think that's maybe something that down the road they might entertain going back to a turf then to make more uses out of the stadium? Maybe does that mean they want to utilize the stadium more, possibly now having these lights?
I mean, I guess it's possible. Although it always seemed weird, and people always said, "Why is an agricultural school like MSU using a fake turf field?" Because MSU had a turf field dating back to the 70s, I think, is when it went back. Yeah. Michigan only went to turf. Michigan actually they went turf to grass, then back to turf in the early 2000s. So, but I know MSU does a really good job with their turf. They're very proud of it. Considering all the work that goes into that, unless they think they're going to change it down the road. I don't know. I guess that's a possibility too. But, I mean, they changed to real grass for a reason, knowing that they wouldn't be able to do many events this year. So, I don't know. So, yeah. Let's stay on football then. Okay, so earlier this week, or last week, when did it come out? This weekend. Dom threw out an email to everybody asking for a quick little round table, give your early thoughts on MSU season, what a record and why, and a season highlight. And this set off a whole lot of people on the U of M side of things. Now, I didn't see what anybody else had written until Dom posted it. The only one who'd seen it was Dom, who got all the things. We didn't all put these together all at the same. We just all happened to kind of say similar things. Joe said 9-3, highlight win over Michigan. Austin said 10-2, highlight win over Michigan. Jameson said 10-2, highlight win over Michigan. Jason said 10-2, highlight beating Ohio State. I said 10-2, highlight beating Michigan. Dom went 12-0, highlight being win that championship. I think that probably set it off at the end. But the fact that okay, so a lot of things here. For one, right, I didn't see what anybody else had written when I did my thing. I also mentioned there's a number of swing games, tough games in there. Also, the fact they have to play 11 straight will be difficult. I said the season highlight was Michigan because I don't think they're going to win the division. If I had thought they were going to win the division or win the Big Ten, that would have been my pick for the highlight. But when you take what I think is going to happen, I think of those, beating Michigan would be the highlight because I don't think they're going to win the division. I think they'll lose. I think they'll lose to at least Ohio State, probably one more, and maybe they'll lose to Michigan. I don't think they're going to win the division. Michigan may end up winning the division. They may be the favorite to win the division. So that was. But this set off like a whole lot of Michigan fans who all thought we were homer picking MSU because it's higher than what Vegas says, which I mean it's not like D'Antonio has ever exceeded expectations. But and then everybody picking Michigan, hashtag obsessed, yada yada yada. But I think a reason for that is because most of us here didn't pick them to win the division. So that's why that was the highlight. So I mean, had to pick something good. I mean, I guess it could be beating hashtag real rival Wisconsin, playing them for the first time in 5 years or something like that. But beating Michigan's a big deal for MSU, so that's why I thought it was a highlight. So my thoughts on the season: defense should carry them as long as that Davis gets cleared, which still hasn't come out yet. But there are some tough games there. Non-conference is sneaky tough. BYU, I think they'll lose at Notre Dame. They always play poorly against Notre Dame under D'Antonio. Ohio State will be late in the season, so they'll have their team figured out. They have J.T. Barrett back, who, if it ain't raining, completely shredded MSU 2 years ago at Spartan Stadium. So yeah, I didn't think it was ridiculous to say 10-2. I mean, I think Vegas had them something around 8 wins or something. There's certainly questions about this team. We don't know really who the quarterback is going to be. They have to replace the receivers. But like I said, I think
it was me. I set him off.
Yeah, you probably. Well, then you wagged it on too. We'll get to you.
Yeah.
We'll get to you in a second. I don't think they're going 12-0. They've never gone 12-0 under D'Antonio. The year they would have done that would have been last year, and they dropped the ball against Nebraska. So your thing's a little different. But as for the rest of us here, I don't think anybody else was really unreasonable. And the fact that Michigan was the highlight was because most of us don't have them winning the division. I mean, they've won at least 11 games, 5 out of 6 years now, going back to 2010. They've replaced, and when Greg Jones was gone and Kirk Cousins left, Province was supposed to take a step back. They have one bad year, but they bounce back. Cousins left, that's supposed to be the end, bounce back. Now Cook is gone, now that's supposed to be the end. Now, there were conditions at play, but Tyler O'Connor did win at Ohio State last year with a defense that was not very good, and he didn't throw the ball around. I'm very curious to see if they play a similar option style of offense. I think that would fit their personnel the best. But I think more than anything is that D'Antonio, MSU, they've earned the benefit of the doubt. I think 10-2 is not an unreasonable pick for them at all, no matter what Vegas says, because we're going off of what we've seen them doing before. And we're not saying there's any. I mean, Jameson leads off saying there are a ton of question marks for this team. There's no doubt there are. We're not, the only one who. I mean, Dom, you, I think, went over the top, and you got detailed as to why you did, and you take a little enjoyment in firing people up. So explain.
When people are hashtag mad online, yes.
Explain. I disagree with it, but explain your 12-0 prediction.
Well, I mean, like what I said in there, I look at the team and the way that the schedule is set up, and let me say, yes, we do have a very tough non-conference schedule. Feldman over at Fox Sports, he said that according to his toughness index, we're actually the 7th toughest non-conference schedule. The only one that's the only Big Ten team that is tougher than us is Ohio State. Ohio State actually has one hell of a run of it. But you're looking at the team, and the biggest test I think for us is going to be early at Notre Dame. The Notre Dame have a senior QB? Yes. Is it going to be tough for a lot of the youth to be under the lights in South Bend with touchdown Jesus looking down them? Sure. But I think that D'Antonio wants to bring back a W over the top of Notre Dame, not just because it'll actually set up our season pretty well, but it's something that I think we would actually something that we're going to be able to pull off with a quarterback like Tyler O'Connor. I mean, I said these Spartans remind me a lot of the team from 2013. Now, 2012 was one down year. There wasn't really any expectations. We went like 7-6. We had the nice field goal win over the top of TCU in the formerly known as the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl. But I think that O'Connor. There's questions for QB, but I just have this feeling that O'Connor is going to be the starting quarterback. But then again, we didn't know who was going to be the starting quarterback in 2013 either. And Cook really cemented himself in there. I think that O'Connor's going to take that. I think that Holmes or Williams is going to be able to have a breakout year at running back. We have
and they're behind LJ Scott as it is.
Yeah, exactly. And then the line. I think that the fact that Clemens just got granted sixth year of eligibility. I think that's he brings a lot of wisdom and a lot of just stability to the offensive line. You have a wide receiving core that actually that needs to live up to some expectations, but I definitely think that there's some good chance there that them being able to step up. This team is not going to be one of those teams that's going to be like a Connor Cook. We're going to throw a ton of touchdown passes. I think it's going to get back to some solid groundwork, and it's going to like you said, it's going to rest on the defense. But I think that Malik McDowell is going to be able to really step up this year, and we're getting healthy in the secondary. A lot of people look at this past year, and it was a great season for Michigan State, but we were banged up in the secondary. We were banged up all over the place. Obviously, for any team in any league in any year to go 12-0, you're going to need to have some breaks. You're going to have a couple of balls bounce your way, and you're going to have to stay healthy. Obviously, yeah, I'm the homer on the panel, and I'm saying that they're going to go 12-0, but when you have a schedule that lines up the way that it does, even with the bye early, if we can get past Notre Dame, it's not crazy to think that we'd be able to beat Michigan at home. It's not crazy to think that we're going to be able to beat Ohio State at home. I would say that Ohio State had a much better team this past year and the year before that, when we could have beat them at home, even though we did get torched on defense. We had a chance to win that game, and we won the game last year with a backup quarterback at the Horseshoe. And Ohio State graduated a ton of talent. There is the chance that this can happen. It's not the craziest thing in the world of this being able to happen. So, D'Antonio and the guys, they've got a chip on their shoulder, right? We represented the Big Ten in the college football playoff last year, and we're picked third in our own division. Come on now. D'Antonio's going to get these dudes fired up, and I'm sticking by it. Go ahead, get mad. M Blue Blog. Come at me.
I just think the Notre Dame, of all the ones, I think it's the Notre Dame game that they have very little chance of. They haven't won. There was that stretch where they won 5 or 6 in a row there.
Yeah.
They lost there in 2009 at the end. They lost there in 2011 in an ugly one. They lost there 13 in an ugly but close one. D'Antonio just never seems to have MSU on its A game when that Notre Dame game comes around. And it's a team that's going to have to figure some things out. And the fact that it's so early, they're only going to have the Furman game under their belt, which will not show us much of anything. And then there's the bye. I don't give them much of a chance in that game. Could they beat Ohio State? Yeah. Could they lose to Michigan? Yeah. I think all three teams are right there. Are right there in the mix. I think Michigan's going to be really good team. They just got to find a quarterback, but Harbaugh has shown an ability to do that. If it's Wilton Speight, guy who played at Minnesota last year and did all right. So in Ohio State, yeah, they replace everybody, but they also fill in those spots with a bunch of highly touted guys anyway, and Meyer knows how to maximize his team. He's only lost one regular season conference game, I think, or something in 4 years or something like that. So
Yeah. I mean, I think he's only lost 4 games his entire stay at Ohio State. But, I mean, 2 of them have been Michigan State, so I think that says something.
Jeremy, you were not involved in this roundtable. What is your season record prediction and season highlight?
I knew you were going to come to me on that one. So with I decided not to be a part of the roundtable for doing the whole Kirk Herbstreit, like I'm calling a game. Now now that I work at MSU and could see these guys walk into my office, I decided that I didn't want to put a number out there. But I think going away from like just a season record, because I think the big thing for me is I was probably coming up, around the 8-4, 9-3 mark, with the swing game being maybe the Wisconsin game. Just for looking, I mean, last season we did beat both Ohio State and Michigan, but I mean, looking at those games individually, it took, Ohio State having probably like the worst coached effort of Urban Meyer's whole career. If he calls anything like a competent offensive game plan, who knows what can happen there. And then obviously it took the biggest, most lucky play probably ever to happen against Michigan, which, we'll take, and you got to have players make plays, but still, it was, one punt getting off from not winning that game last year too. So I think, looking at the 4 toughest games, the Wisconsin, Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, I think if we could get through those at a 2-2 mark, I would be pretty, content with the season, really trading any of those around. Obviously, if the Michigan game happens out of that as a win, that would probably end up being the season highlight because, like you said, Chris, I wouldn't see us winning the division. So for me, the season highlight is probably if, we win the Notre Dame, Michigan, or Ohio State game out of that pack, whatever one is probably the most prestigious. It can kind of depend which one we do end up winning. For me personally, I'd like to beat Notre Dame the most probably, just as a Grand Valley alum. I'd love to beat Brian Kelly. Kind of tired of losing to Brian Kelly and watching his face get purple. I kind of miss it, and maybe he'll come back to Grand Valley and win us more national championships if he gets fired from Notre Dame. But I think that with the way the season schedule lined up, with having the bye, only Furman before Notre Dame, and then having that long stretch of 11 straight games with a really tricky BYU game there in the middle, I couldn't quite go 12-0 like Dom. And I also was kind of worried about outside the Nebraska game. Yeah, we did lose that, but we've had a pretty good stretch run of winning every game that it looked like we were going to lose to a crappy team the last couple of years. And I was, this might be the year that one of those jump up to
# Rutgers.
Yeah, the Rutgers, the Indiana finally actually putting 4 quarters together against us, or, I really, even though my wife is a Bears fan, I can't give her Lovie Smith beating us. That's not going to happen. But it's hard to think 12-0. But I think if we could have a season of about 10-2, get to a good bowl game, I think that would be a pretty successful season, and hopefully find some time for Damian Terry to get in there as well. So it's not too much of a drop-off next year with Tyler moving on and figuring out the QB competition again.
Yeah, another thing in MSU's favor, here are their Big Ten road games. Indiana, Maryland, Illinois, Penn State at the end of the year. 3 of those, they should be gimmies if this program is where, people think it is. I guess Indiana can be good and bad depending on what day it is. But the home games: Wisconsin, BYU, Michigan, Ohio State, Rutgers, Northwestern. All other than Notre Dame and Penn State, most of their tough games are at home, and they didn't lose a home game in 2010. They didn't lose a home game in 2011. They lost a bunch of close home games in 2012. They didn't lose a home game in 2013. They lost 1 home game in 2014 to Ohio State. They didn't lose a home game in 2015. This team plays good at home. Plays very good, very well at home.
Speaking of the lights, D'Antonio's actually 9-3 under the lights overall at Spartan Stadium. So if we want to talk about just winning percentage, going back to that conversation,
the losses were what? Notre Dame 2012, Ohio State 2014, and would that have been a home night game? Is that what?
Yeah, I think it was. I was looking at those stats earlier. He's 9-3 in the 12 night games. In his first
the Nebraska game 2012, would that be the third one?
No, that was the 3:30 game.
I just remember it being night by the
Let
end.
me see what else is. What else? Oh, Iowa, 2009, the last play of the
Oh,
game.
yeah.
Yeah. So those
Yeah.
were the three.
Yeah. So hey,
So-
maybe those lights are going to be a good thing. Nothing but night games for D'Antonio. We'll be good.
Okay, well, I think 12-0 is a little ridiculous. I don't think 10-2 is ridiculous. I don't think everybody picking them to beat Michigan is ridiculous because they have won a bunch against Michigan, and also they have under D'Antonio never played poorly against Michigan, even if they were good and Michigan was bad or whatever. They played well in the 07 game. They played well in the 08 game. Played well enough in the 09 game. Good in the 10 game. Good in the 11 game. 12 game was an ugly ass game. But they were a missed field goal away from winning that game.
Yep.
And then, so they've never not shown up against Michigan, and it's at home. So I don't think it's unreasonable at all for any of us to pick them to beat Michigan. You can say it's homer or not, but I think a lot of people would pick them. I mean, come October 28th, we'll see where the teams are. Maybe our picks are different, but right now, all of recent history has told us it's not unreasonable to pick that. And again, one of the reasons we all listed it as a highlight is because other than Dom, most of us don't have them winning the division or winning the Big Ten or winning the national championship. So I think that was a perfectly reasonable highlight under those cases. If I had them winning the division, that would have been my highlight. I don't think the highlight of last season, well, it was one of the highlights for MSU to beat Michigan the way they did, but I think highlight is beating Ohio State on the last second field goal, beating Iowa the way they did, beating Michigan. It wasn't just the Michigan game does not define their season. It does not define their program anymore. It hasn't been like that for a while.
I would argue that Iowa drive, is really like the definition. Like to me, that's like the definition of D'Antonio football.
Probably, yeah.
Like it's like you don't think he's going to do, but it's going to last a lot longer than you think it's going to. And Michigan State's going to essentially end up on top at the end. I mean, that's as gritty as it gets. So
we're gonna all right. So we all picked them to beat Michigan. We all picked them to win 9, 10 games. Dom went with 12. But so
God, it's going to feel so good at the end of the year.
Those involved will continue to hear that for a while, I guess, until October 29th, and we see how the game is. And if MSU loses that, I'm sure Dom will get a bunch of that thrown in his face. So, but that's how this goes. So, whatever. We'll talk more football maybe as we get into fall camp and that. Other than that, there's not really much to talk about in June regarding football. So, last topic here will be the NBA. Couple things. LeBron winning, bringing back to Cleveland, record comeback. Warriors record regular season falling short. Draymond doing his thing, nearly a triple-double in Game 7. And kicking a lot of dudes in the nuts, or at least hitting a lot of dudes in the nuts. I guess we'll start, when he was suspended, I thought that was perfectly reasonable because he wasn't suspended for the play. He was suspended because he got another flagrant. It was ruled a flagrant, and it added up, so he got suspended. I thought that was fair. He has lost the benefit of the doubt when it comes to nut shots because he does it a lot, whether it's intentional, whether it's him flopping up in the air and hitting somebody in the nuts. That looked somewhat deliberate to me. I thought it was fair that he got suspended. Dom, what did you think when he got suspended?
I mean, it hurt, man. Like, Draymond was playing in those finals. I mean, the entire Golden State team disappeared in Game 3. I mean, they lost by, 33 or something like that. It was insane. But, Draymond was playing well enough, and after Game 4, we were looking at the potential of having a Draymond MVP in the finals, and a Michigan State alum having back-to-back championships. I mean, that right there took the air, I think, out of the series, and I think that it was incredibly deliberate on LeBron James's part to step over the top of him like that.
I also agree with that.
It's a ridiculously disrespectful move. Like that move is so disrespectful. But you know what? It was a very smart player in LeBron James, egging on at the end of a game that they knew that they were going to lose, egging on a player that he knew that if he got one more flagrant, he was going to be suspended for another game. And, Draymond playing in Game 5, it's impossible to tell the future, but they win that game. Like, they 100% do. Izzo was on the Dan Patrick Show the day afterwards, and he said, number one, Draymond's not a thug, but number two, he acted stupid, but it showed how much Draymond was actually worth. And, they got blown out on their home floor where they just basically really didn't lose for the last 2 years. So, it really took all of the air out of the series, and it completely flipped it. But, thinking about Draymond, yeah, he should have been suspended for that game because he made dumb plays in the Rockets series, throwing the guy down, and then whether it should have been a flagrant 2 or flagrant 1 or whatever, it was intentional when he went that way on Steven Adams, and it was Draymond, and we saw this before at Michigan State. He's a smart, emotional leader, but it was funny. There was an article today that Danny Chow for The Ringer actually put out where he was talking about how the league wants a bunch of Draymonds, and they want the emotional leader, and he referenced Draymond as almost being like a Rasheed Wallace. That type that could totally pull everybody together, but is on the edge of destruction at any moment. And Draymond has a little bit of that in him. He has a little bit of that Saginaw, I need to fight. It's going to be a dogfight type of mentality still within him that fuels him, which is great. But when he loses it, he kicks a Kiwi in the nuts, and because of that. He even took the onus. They kind of lost the series because of that. So.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not they lost the series, I think it changed the series. But Draymond sure did his damnedest to win that Game 7. He did not get a whole lot of help from the league MVP and Klay Thompson in Game 7. I mean, Draymond put up more than 30 points, nearly a triple-double. He at least I think he made up for it a bit with that Game 7 performance, even though they lost. But I do think it kind of changed it. Jeremy, what did you think about Draymond in that whole deal?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny because after he got suspended, I was catching up on podcasts now that I have a really long commute to work, and I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast at the end of the OKC series, and they were basically talking about, heading into the end of that OKC series, that in any blowout game, Billy Donovan should just put out his 12th man and just try and hockey goon it up and just get Draymond to take a stupid flagrant. So like Dom said, I think that, yeah, what LeBron did was obvious and deliberate, and he's trying to do something, but that was just incredibly smart. Because, Draymond, everyone knew that Dre was on the edge of getting a suspension for one more outburst pretty much, and knew that in the heat of the moment maybe he can't control that. So I think, it was definitely deserved. It was clearly obvious. I think he was lucky to probably get through the Oklahoma City series and not have a suspension. And he just picked a really terrible time to not finish out the season without one more flagrant.
Well, here's something. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But coming from a hockey background, I think it's incredibly smart of any team that plays Draymond to do that. I mean, until he shows the ability to really consistently, especially in the playoffs where it's going to get heated, show the ability to kind of have control over that emotion in a little bit more of a controlled state. I think it's something that he probably needs to get ready to see a lot of, because it's probably coming for him.
Yeah, and I mean, things could have been different, but it's interesting to think if he had been suspended for the Steven Adams kick, that last flagrant on LeBron wouldn't have put him over the limit, I don't think. But I guess the whole
he would have been suspended again. That's the thing. Is they were even putting him on at the end of Game 6.
Yeah.
If he would have done anything then, he would have been suspended again for Game 7.
And even and if he doesn't, then Steven Adams, we would not even have this conversation of them being in the finals. So
yeah,
I mean, he got lucky to.
He
to get
flails a lot. He flails a lot. I saw a video of actually on the play where he blocked or he fouls LeBron on one of the last plays right for the free throws.
Yeah.
Game 7. He goes up fouls LeBron, and kind of his legs go out flying, which is what he does. And as he lands on the ground, he throws his legs up, and he kind of hits Kyrie Irving. And, I mean, it's just what he does. And and I saw a lot of MSU fans really trying to defend him after the suspension and the nut shot and whatever. And I don't think he lives on that line. He crossed it too many times. I think it was completely fair what happened. But that's what Draymond does. And it was fascinating to see as these playoffs went on how the Warriors, led by Draymond, completely turned into the pro wrestling heel, the bad guy. It was remarkable to see that this team that everybody loved in the regular season going for the record, and they just wanted that championship so much that they kind of, like, the bad guy in them came out, and you can tell that Draymond's always been fueled by that. He loved the accolades, but what really got Draymond where he was people not liking him, people saying he couldn't do certain things, they didn't want him to do certain things, and it'll be interesting to see how that carries forward. I know he said after the series, we know a lot of people didn't want us to win Game 7, and Steph Curry losing his cool, throwing a mouth guard at the fan, which was actually kind of funny, but
pegged it right there. That's accuracy, man. He hit him right in the face.
But it was very interesting to see as the playoffs went on how they kind of turned into the bad guys, and I think Draymond likes that, and that's going to be part of Draymond continuing to push it, because that's what he's always done, and that's what's made him what he is.
And I think it's going to be the ultimate test for the Warriors too. Like, they came out and they were firing on all cylinders last year, and they were kind of the underdog. People were picking the Cavs, people were picking LeBron. He was the story, like, oh, I'm coming back to Cleveland first year, boom, they're right there in the finals, and then they just start firing off, and they're having fun, and then, you have Steph, you have Ayesha Curry, everybody's like, man, I love the Warriors. But, now that the fact that Draymond gets labeled as a nut kicker, and, they're cocky, and Ayesha Curry is all, mad tweeting that the finals are rigged, like, the shyness sort of worn off a little bit, and I think it'll be good for him. I think it'll be good for him overall, just to try to get a little bit more of that. Everybody needs a little bit more of that Draymond fire. So get that chip on your shoulder, guys.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if he was asked or not, but I don't think Draymond regrets. He was the one who pushed him to go for 73, and while Steve Kerr maybe sounded like he wanted to rest his guys. But like Draymond said at the time, they have a title. No one's won 73. They want to go. I don't think they regret that. They were up 3-1. They had 3 chances to cement their case as the greatest team in NBA history, and they just came up short. I don't think it was for any other reason other than LeBron just went insane, and the Warriors players like Curry sort of disappeared. It was unfortunate that we really never got to see much of God mode Steph Curry in the playoffs. Basically, after he had that knee injury in the first round, I think. It was kind of sad that we never got to see God mode Steph Curry going up against God mode LeBron. But
yeah, it was that overtime game that he came back, and he scored 17 of the 19 points in the overtime. But after that, he kind of just turned into quiet. I'm going to score, 20, 22, 23 points a game, which is, unfortunate. I would have loved to see that too. That would have been a lot of fun.
But I still think it was cool that, by the time Game 7 came around, I was rooting for the Cavs. I think as the game went on to finally get over the hump there, and where were you guys at? Were you rooting for Draymond, or were you rooting for Cleveland? How'd you weigh that?
How about you, Jay? What were you doing?
My NBA fandom is pretty low, so I guess I'd have to say I was probably rooting for Draymond, but the hashtag narrative fan of me also didn't mind seeing LeBron get that Cleveland title. So I think for me going into the series, I really don't think I could have had a bad result, especially as long as Draymond played well. I wish the suspension didn't happen, but the fact that he had a strong Game 7, and even though his team went out, at least it went out with Draymond being their best player. I think that was about as good of a script as we could have gotten, except maybe Draymond actually winning that game and possibly getting the MVP without that suspension.
Yeah, I was rooting for that. I mean, I may have had a little bit of financial incentive as well for the Warriors, but but hey, you win some, you lose some. But no, I mean, I was rooting for the Warriors. I mean, I love history, and
Well, that was the thing. It was
yeah.
like I wanted Cleveland to win, but I also wanted to see history. I really liked the debate of who's the best team ever, these Warriors or Bulls or whoever. And I'd always say it depends on what rules or what rules you're using, whatever time period rules you're using. But because the Warriors were so much fun to watch, just every Warriors regular season this game was just a must-see event. You just had to watch it. It was always entertaining. And so you rooted for that. But then again, as the playoffs kind of started to end, they made that heel turn where everybody was like, "Nah, I kind of want the Cavs to win." And that's kind of the way I went. But that's good. That's what the NBA needs. The NBA needs. I mean, the NBA is doing great financially. I'm not going to tell them what they need to be. But it's great when these sports have characters with stories and different things going on rather than everybody just buddy trying to team up and be the best team. You had history going against greatest team ever going against a drought. You had that greatest team ever pushing the boundaries of what they could do, getting overly frustrated when they couldn't do it. You had the 3-1, the comeback never happened before. That was just an unbelievable story that happened. And you had guys that, when the games were going on, did not like each other. When LeBron would block Curry, he'd get in his face, Draymond taunting his thing. You had action, you had stories, you had characters going on, and it was just incredibly entertaining television.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be good for that going forward. Because some of these other leagues are really devoid of characters and stories, and that's what we get drawn into, I think. And the NBA had that this year, and a great way to cap it off too. It was just really well done. I mean, not well done like it was scripted, but it was a great story that was told.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely. I mean, like I just started diving into talking about Bill Simmons again. I'm diving into his book, The Book of Basketball, and reading some of those stories, reading like those the rivalries that you had with the Celtics against the Lakers, back in the Larry Legend days, and you had the series with the bad boys going up against Jordan's Bulls, the first three-peat and everything like that. Like it's good to see those, and it's also good. I mean, I think for the balance of the NBA, the fact that the last couple of years we've had such a conversation in the NBA of should you just open it up to the top 16 teams instead of the top 8 from each division, because the balance was so out of whack with how much better the West was than the East, and the fact that the West didn't just blow out the very much best team in the East, the Cavaliers, but instead actually pushed it to a 7-game series and ended up winning. I mean, it's great for the NBA, and it's great as a fan. Hell, we got a full slate of basketball all the way until the end of June. That's pretty awesome.
Jeremy, what did you think of? So you said you were rooting for kind of the Warriors at the end there?
Yeah, I think I'd probably say that's where I was. But again, I don't think I really could lose either way. Definitely did not lose financially like Dom, so I didn't have that motivation going. I think it would have been cool, almost in a way, once Draymond got suspended. I think it would have been hard for him to pull off winning the MVP after that. So with that happening, I think I almost became more okay with the Cavs winning. But I really wanted the Draymond MVP to happen, but once that kind of seemed like that wasn't going to be a thing, the redemption was cool in Game 7, but it was also really cool to see this week. Like I'm kind of a sucker for seeing the parades and seeing the reactions of like people who have not had a championship before. So seeing this week has made it okay with me that Cleveland won.
Shirtless J.R. Smith for the win.
That's been excellent. That's been awesome.
And also that picture of Dellavedova wearing that, I don't know what shirt it was, but in a club in Vegas drinking a Corona out of a can. Like that's the pinnacle of sports right there.
Yeah. So all right. So we'll wrap this up with NBA draft because It's Thursday night, and it may be old news by the time. Now, Dom, you wanted to do another roundtable. I don't know how many responses you got in it, but you were asking about the draft and most likely just Denzel Valentine. And I'm not super well versed in the NBA, but you asked who he's compared to, what team is the best fit. I don't really know where he's going to go. It's been interesting to see these reports of his knees possibly being not in great shape and how that could cause him to slide down. I'm not someone who I think is going to. A year ago, midway through last season, when his junior season, I was still not on board that I thought he'd be an NBA player. But man, that guy just got better every single year, and I'm sure that's what Izzo told the scouts. In every conceivable category, assists went up, turnovers went down, three-point shooting went way up, scoring went way up. Everything, he just got better in every category, and the fact that he turned himself into a possible lottery pick is a heck of a testament to just how he's worked. Because you saw flashes when he came in, but there was also a lot of bad in there, and he's gotten rid of most of that now. Can he be a pure point guard in the NBA where you've got quicker, bigger guards and dealing with? I think it might be a bit of an adjustment, but as we've seen, the guy everybody compares him to is Draymond because, he's a little bit positionalist, maybe a tweener, obviously comes from Michigan State, so there's a lot of comparisons that they make there. But it's going to be interesting to see if he can, like I said, handle the quality of NBA players, because when he was pressured in college, he did not necessarily handle it that well. He's got a great handle, but he's not the greatest at just dribbling in pressure when there's pressure on him. He's a great passer, obviously. So that might be a bit of an adjustment for him. And Draymond has gotten a lot better in the NBA. You see how his three-point shooting has dramatically gone up in these few years. It'll take a bit of a time for a player of his skill set to adjust. I think he'll still go in the first round. It seems like that's what's going to happen. I'm not expecting a Connor Cook type slide because, as far as I know, Carlton Valentine doesn't have any bad tweets out there to send any red flags. So I predicted him to go, I think, 20th to the Pacers. I think he'll fall a little bit because of the knees. I don't really know who needs what. Like I said, I'm not super well versed in the NBA, but Dom, your thoughts on Valentine relative to the draft? And you didn't ask about Deontay Davis either. I just remembered. But I keep forgetting about him because he was only at MSU for 1 year and he was like not.
That's exactly why I didn't ask about him. Like,
oh yeah, I forgot he's going in there. By most accounts, he seems to be a top 20, top 15 guy. It sounds like, based on what I've looked at. So, I mean, yeah. I don't know how much you follow the NBA compared to me, but what are your thoughts on those two guys in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I follow it. I follow it a decent amount. I think that Davis is one of those guys that he's a big guy that Izzo did not give. I mean, you look at it, bigs really didn't shoot at Michigan State. And the way that the NBA draft is going, when you're looking at this when you're looking at this Draymond, there's a Draymond prototype of what everybody wants. They're like, where can we find the next Draymond Green? Like you want a big that's going to be able to shoot. Kevin Durant is a specimen because he's, 7 foot, so, right about 7 feet, and the dude can shoot from anywhere. So Davis didn't really get highlighted at Michigan State for what I think he's actually going to be able to do. But then again, he's also just like super raw. Like he's right. He's gonna be good. I think that Davis sort of reminds me of Al Horford right when he came out of high school. Now, actually, I went to high school with Al.
We both did.
Yeah, Jeremy and I went to high school together, so we went to high school with Al.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so at Grand Ledge, right outside of East Lansing, and Al was not big. He was, he had a very slender frame. He hadn't really grown into it, which you're expected to do. That's expected at 18 years old. But I think that Davis. I was watching some of his stuff at the combine. I was watching some of his workouts. Like he's gonna be able to pull up some jumpers from 18 feet and be able to surprise some people. But I mean, it's gonna take him 2 to 3 years, to really get into that. The speed of the game was what I think is really gonna slow him down. But for Valentine, I mean, the dude has, and everyone you talk to, he has one of the best basketball IQs, I would say probably in this draft. Like, there's not a person who is smarter about the game of basketball than he is. And that's what happens when you have your brother that's behind the bench for 2 years. You know, you essentially are Izzo with gap teeth on the court at all times. Like, that's what Valentine was. And so I see him being able to be a role player pretty much right away. The knee thing, you know, he was talking to Andy Katz today, and, you know, they asked him right away. They're like, hey, you had a scope on your left knee, and then you had, like, they brought up he had an injury on his right knee when he was playing in high school, his freshman year, and they were talking about that. And, you know, it's not I don't think it's a short-term thing. You know, he came back really quick. He's going to be able to build up a lot more muscle, you know, and just overall get bigger to be able to, you know, protect his knees. I think it might be a long-term thing. So, you know, if the dude doesn't play in the league for 15 years, maybe he only pays for 12, you know, he's still going to be able to be a great guy for that. I see him going probably. I mean, I agree with like Draft Express. I think like somewhere around the range of like 22 going to the Hornets. As long as there's not any like big trades that happen, I think that's probably a good falling point for him in the 20s, and, you know, he'll be able to walk up on that stage in those new suits that he's been tweeting about. So.
Yeah. I've also heard some other NBA folks who said they don't think it's a big deal. It's not a red flag. They think it'll be fine. I think the knee issue and the skill issue are almost two separate things. So I don't. Jeremy, what do you think on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you guys kind of covered a lot of the strong points of Denzel and what we think he's going to be able to translate to the NBA. I think honestly, looking at him from a pretty, you know, not knowing basketball quite as well as you guys do, probably watching from like the surface, I think that he needs to get a situation almost like Draymond, where it's really going to depend where he falls and gets into the right fit. I think that if he gets into a system that's not going to work for him, or an organization that's just going to be a bad fit, it's going to be really hard for him to kind of make it work in the league. It seems that's one of the biggest things in the NBA is there's a lot of talented guys that just end up in the wrong place, and it just really can really tank the whole career, or just really makes it a slow start to their career. So I think for Denzel, it's really not about where he goes as far as number. It's going to hopefully be just the best fit for him to really showcase his skills and fit into like an organization.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to hit? We've been going to this. We've been having a pretty long deal here. Anything else you guys want to hit on anything?
No.
I think that covers it.
Yeah. I think we pretty much covered everything.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on while Joe's dealing with his thing. No longer living with
Blake O'Neal.
With Blake O'Neal. That was a fun era of the Only Podcast. So appreciate you guys for listening. Subscribe on iTunes if you want to. We'll pick up more of these as we get closer to the season. Just wanted to throw one of these out here for the summer. Although there's a bunch of stuff going on. I'm on Twitter at Chris Vanini. Jeremy's at you got a new handle, don't you, Jeremy?
Yeah, for employment, it's way too long, probably.
Yeah, you know, don't worry about it. And Dom, you run at The Only Colors, and you're also just at Dom Garrett, right?
At Dom Garrett, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. All right, guys, and thanks for listening, and we will talk to you some later time in the summer. Thanks, guys. See you.
See ya.